Hello everybody. Yeah, so obviously I had a bejesus load of alerts hit. You can see down the log. Even at the weekend, and then the ones I've talked about or before. So the ones I would have talked about will have broken down, because so the early ones to hit tend to be the ones that break. So I'll have a quick look at those ones I already talked about before. So we had this MNT was a bit of a dubious one anyway, because for whatever reason it was thrown off a cliff in this candle when it hit the weekly, and yeah, it has actually come through the weekly, so that's a failed alert for the immediate weekly, which would have been a weekly demand anyway, because of the wick, and that's something I would have commented on the other day. This was a short alert, and again we talked about, my double click isn't working, we talked about this coming down and having a demand right there, but you know, the short worked quite nicely off that high. If anyone had taken that, then getting quite a good buyback on this candle. So now we've had a bit of a bounce on BTC, it's worth looking at some of these. Excuse me, smoking again. I'm going to have to go through and chart all these properly later, but yeah, PYTH, we're just looking like, you know, is it going to reject off this 12 hour here, or is it going to just keep going back up off? So it's coming for 3-day demand, so weekly supply to 3-day demand, it's just indecisive at this point. There's no trade to be had. You can look for a short on the 12 hour if you want, or slightly more conservatively and probably more likely the 4 hour here, but at the moment we're still in this local uptrend. So just need to see if it's going to make a lower high on the high time frame there. SC is just still going sideways, so this is one I said to watch. It was a supply alert. It's a 3-month. It has had already had a wick in it, so it might go up and take out this high still, and it's still edging. But keep an eye on that because it's still early. But then the short will come on that. Well, unless it's going to be one of the crazy ones, which does happen occasionally, so we shall see, but it's not giving structure to short yet, and in fact it's held up there with Bitcoin falling is interesting in itself. But yeah, keep an eye on that. Silly, so Silly we talked about because I had a more aggressive alert. I think there was a 12 hour in here, which I really would have wanted to hit on the previous wick. And again, it's still retaining the downtrend on the 2-day. But I then reset the alert for this daily at the bottom, and it's come down and taken stops inside the daily, but it's actually held quite well given the dump as well. So keep an eye on this. It's not a buy right now on the lower time frame because it's just about to hit 8 hour supply, but just keep an eye on it because it did buy back nicely after the drop. And I think, you know, it's still in demand, so it's still a decent risk to reward, you know, for the lower time frames. But that the 2 days a bit of a risk, but something to keep an eye on. GROK, I think, okay, it's just gone deeper, so there's 12 hour demand again. These are the earlier ones to hit, so this has now got a lot of supply above, so I would hold off on this more than anything because a 12 hour with so much supply and so much selling previously. But yeah, again, it's not an immediate buy, but something to keep an eye on. It is in demand. If you start to see volume come into it, if you start to see supply broken, then it might be a long later. RAD was one I wanted because I wanted to at least try and get up to this daily up here. But it's so wicky, I wonder if it's just far too low volume. So it did hit this 3-day, and the alert was earlier yesterday, and it did have a decent bounce off that, but obviously now the rejections come, and it had a good bounce up to 12 hour supply, but then has made another 12 hour supply in there subsequently. So not something I want to get into at the moment, and this needs more time to figure out what it's going to do, and might come down deeper into the daily or in the weekly if Bitcoin's not going back up as yet. don't like how quickly it's been pushed back down, I guess, on that is what it boils down to. It's come down really too hard. Although having said that, it is in a 4-hour demand. Something you can keep an eye on anyway, but just be conscious on this that there's a 12-hour supply immediately above, which is confirmed. So while it may bounce on this 4-hour, it could just come back up to that blue level. Could come higher inside it, admittedly, but not something I want to be looking at getting into right now. That would be the 12-hour supply you're looking at. So it's a big zone, but still. Litecoin I won't look at because we know that failed anyway. QI was one I've had for a while. I kind of was looking at the break of this trend line initially, but it never really went very far off there and made this weekly supply. But it is back down now in 3-week demand. It's not quite there yet, so something to watch. And then there's a 3-month level just below that inside. So just keep an eye on this coming down. It's early days and it's still still at least got a little bit further to go, and will then could bounce deeper inside on there or even on the 3-day. But yeah, that's something to keep an eye on because that's a decent move up. So a decent move up. It's kind of broken structure, but something that's worth a watch because it has a bit of a nice gap here. If it does manage, or if the market in general manages to hold, this has got quite a lot of space and quite a lot of stops that can be taken. Doggy coin. Someone wanted me to look at this yesterday, and it was just bad timing, really. I've said, it's got this new 3-day, not an ideal 3-day, but it has held, but obviously it's come deeper inside it, making it thus look slightly more bearish than it has previously. Something to watch. Don't like this quite so much though, and I don't like the stops underneath this that are forming now. So I think if Bitcoin does get a follow-up drop, which I still think is probably very possible, this could well go lower. Tier 1 I expect to fail because again it hit yesterday. It's just gone. There was an 8-hour demand entry, I think, and I actually did the comment on it. Yeah, didn't hit when I wanted it to, but can still watch the zone because I think I set the alert like when the price was here, in the hope it would get the test here, but I think it made this 2-day before. TRLs, maybe it'll come back, but also are these alts that have previously been the sort of flavour of the month, are they going to come back into being the flavour of the month? Not fully sure. And also, if you watched the stream yesterday, you'll know that I said that virtually everything now is going to have a 2-day supply, the same way Bitcoin has. So what I will be doing is going through and looking at the more promising. So something like this, I'd be less inclined to look for a short there because it's now come down and hit a weekly demand, even though it's already tested it. But yeah, I'd be less inclined to look at short, but the more bearish ones I think it's worth looking at shorts, and the more bearish and those that have come off monthly supplies at the highs, I think it's certainly worth looking for shorts at these 2-day zones. AGLD, this is, I think this is a 3-day demand, but I think I've deleted it earlier because yeah, it's again, would have been some of these alerts that are coming in now, I commented in the premium group, are ones that I set a while ago. This one I've set far too many on. So, for example, this one would have been something that I probably would have set maybe after it hit that, but maybe even on these candles before, in the hope that it would come back for the test before that. This is something, again, yeah, that you'd be more inclined to look for shorts on. It has hit a 3-month supply at the high. And I don't want to do masses of detail on the structure now. All my drawings have reappeared again, which is, as people know, I get intensely irritated by, and it seems to happen far too often for my liking. Something like this coming off 3-month supply are these are the ones I'd be more inclined to look for the lower high short entries. So something like this, yes, you can long it if you want, but I'd be more inclined to see, is it going to get not much of a bounce, and then we're going to create a new weekly supply by the end of the week, and then we'll look to short this back down again. And if you want to get the earlier entry, does it have to indicate, this case doesn't have a 2-day, potentially short up here towards the 5-day. Yeah, I don't like the structure on this one particularly, and the preference for shorting is obviously if it's broken demand, and this hasn't, but for those that have come off 3-month supply, I think it's certainly worth looking for short entries to potentially take the bigger move down. And when I say the big move down, I mean making a new low, which I know everybody hates, but on this time frame, this is a downtrend. So the bias on the 3-month time frame is for this to make a new low. Whether that's the bias across the whole market is a different question. In this case, okay, we do have a 2-month demand in here, so in this case, no, I don't expect it to make a new low, but there is certainly plenty that could well make a new low, and I think there's certainly one coming later that I think I said was a no from a short perspective. Okay, so anyway, that's more detail than I wanted to go into, given my time constraints today. Something for you if you're watching that. NEAR is one I talked about a lot yesterday, and has bounced quite nicely off the level. So this is, my problem with this, and again what I said yesterday is the confluence just isn't there. And we were looking at confluence on NEAR BTC as well as the other new majors and old majors. Like you can see, for example, Sol, I just want lower. DOT could bounce here, but and I commented that this was a 3-month level yesterday, but I hadn't alerted it, I think because we were coming off a 3-month supply as well, or it's a monthly supply, and I was wanting deeper. But again, it might have bounced. This is obviously a 12 or 8 hour at the blue dotted line, but seeing where Sol is, Atom, yes, it's at a support level, but it's a second test, and then the other new majors, BNB, the aggressive ones, can run through, which is not surprising. LUNC is breaking trend, but obviously still holding that local range. But if I did want to buy that, I'd want to buy it a lot lower. MATIC, I'd want to buy lower. This was an aggressive entry, just on the basis that maybe we wouldn't fall that far, but my preference actually on MATIC is still significantly lower, and ADA is a lot lower. But again, these have picked up some local demand, so it's possible they're going to hold. But that was the risk on NEAR, that, is the whole market ready? Not convinced. Doesn't mean things don't bounce independently, of course, but you're just talking in probabilities. Your probabilities are significantly higher if the whole market is ready together for a bounce. VGX, this hit my alert, but obviously didn't hit the level. But it had a very really good but spiky bounce off the level, so something that's worth keeping an eye on. But again, so this is another one that monthly. I hadn't even updated this chart. This must be just a really old alert, which I'm actually going to reset just in case it comes back. That reset, yeah. So I'm going to reset that. So this actually did have a monthly, and now it's gone off. Great. This did actually have a monthly demand, and it's just gone straight through it, but I just haven't updated the chart. But it's coming out of monthly supply, so the risk for something like this, monthly supply, it's a weak monthly supply. The range is really from all the way down there rather than here, but it makes it slightly more risky for a long. And again, unless the whole market's going to hold, I need to update this chart properly later. But if the whole market holds, great. But if the whole market doesn't hold, something like this is just going to die, and die to no bottom, a bottomless pit. Let me reset that alert properly. Okay, but it has had a decent bounce, and it has actually made an 8-hour demand, so that's something you can watch for a scalp if you want. Just be conscious that it's got this monthly supply in here, albeit a weak one, but it is at the bottom of the range. COTI, 2-week demand. Another one that's retaining my old levels that I don't want in there. Again, something else coming out of 3-month supply. So I've updated a lot of these for the annual candles and things like that, but I haven't really thought through structures in as much detail as I should have done, because the intent of putting the alerts is to just throw them in really quickly. and then when I have time or when the alert actually hits, being able to come back and have a look and see what the structure's doing, whether it's something I want to trade or not. So it's not ideal doing it like very quickly in a stream like this when I haven't checked the charts myself beforehand. But yeah, so this is coming out of a 3-month supply, and I would want this lower. So again, yeah, so this my bias is more bearish. This is one of the ones I refer to as one of the ones that you should look for shorts probably more than anything, but not right now because it's just hit a 2-week. Something like this again, yeah, if it makes a weekly supply here, that's when I'll be looking towards the end of the week. I want to look at these again probably and see if we're going to confirm weekly supply there or whether we're going to get a decent bounce off this level. So something you can look for along, but not one of the high probability ones, but doesn't mean it's not going to get some sort of a bounce. Seller's probably going to be much the same, again with a whole load of old information I don't want. So this has obviously made a new 3-month demand in there, but that's already been tested. So it had a 3 month previously, it came down, it tested it very deeply, so it's more of a triangle in the bigger picture on this. But at least it's not at a significant supply at the highs. I actually want that in there. So it did have a 3-week confirmed in there since I've last charted it, but I previously had the alert on the 2-week. But it's also run into the 3-month here, so this is something that I think is worth looking at for a long. Keep an eye on that. But it does have weekly supply already. So I guess what we're looking at here is not dissimilar to the structures we've had here. So we've gone up, we've made a high, we're retracing, in this case it's made a new high and it's coming back for the test. And then it's just thinking about whether it's going to go for the next wave or not. So and you can see this structure now is quite similar to that last section of it. It's come down, this has come down into a 3-month demand. Did get a bounce, but it took a really long time. This is slightly more bearish because obviously we've got the lower high, but then we also do have a possible triangle forming. So yeah, something that's worth keeping an eye on. But I mean, the triangles are a much bigger picture and it's potentially going to take significantly longer for anything like that to play out. But for a scalp from here up to a weekly supply, nothing wrong with that at all. And then just, you know, if you're doing this, just go in and draw your lower time frames, but just don't be too overconfident that we're going to break supplies that are already put in, unless you've got a structure that's already in a significant uptrend. Bone, I don't even know what bone is. That would be probably an ancient alert that I've had there. So something like this, you can see it's actually hasn't come anywhere near where I had alerted, but this is kind of interesting actually. I like this structure. So we've got, you know, this massive retracement, and this is the first test on this zone since this big breakout. So this actually could be an interesting one to watch. This is one of the MEXC charts where it's moved all the levels. I think they did a data update or something, and all the levels got moved. So this has come up into 2-month supply and dropped down, but we are in this 3-month demand, and we're now deeper in the 3-month demand. So assuming we don't confirm a monthly supply here in the next week, this needs to get a decent bounce fairly rapidly. So a 3-week supply there. I haven't got that listed as a 3-week. It's got a 3-week supply there. Yeah, so assuming this doesn't confirm this monthly nor reject the monthly on the lower time frame, this one could be something promising, but very early days. So like when I say it's something promising, it doesn't mean buy it now or FOMO straight into it. It's something that's worth keeping an eye on. All the levels are different, and there is also this 2-week down here that is untested. So the weekly would be the more aggressive entry up there. I'm going to reset the alert for the 2 week just in case it does drop further. Actually hasn't even quite tapped that level yet, so you have a bit more time to kind of watch this. But this is something, yeah, keep an eye on this on the low time frames, because even if this gets a move up just up to there, you could get extremely good risk to reward. So the 3 weeks already been tested. Got a bit of chop through here. That would be the first zone to get through to confirm it sort of more bearish. Sorry, more bullish if it actually gets through that zone. But yeah, keep an eye on this one because I quite like that structure, assuming it's not. So I mean, the reason I say I like it is that people will see this as a breakdown, but for me it's just a breakdown right into demand. But it has to get back up over that orange level and through this supply fairly rapidly. You know, if it starts stalling when it gets into here, then it's not a good trade anymore. So you have a choice that you can either take it on an hourly or 4 hour or something if you get some structure down here, or wait for lower if that happens lower. But then, yeah, don't enter if it's already bounced into this supply, and then if it stalls again at that supply, just get out and leave it. KAS. Shocked this hit my alert because I've had so many alerts on this, yeah, it just kept not coming back. I got one in there, but then it dipped deeper. I did get a good one there, but then it just after that it just moved and moved and moved. And I think I kept setting them all the way up here, even on 12 hours and things like that. So for the first time, it's come back at an alert, but it now has a significant amount of supply above. But anyway, certainly watch that because KAS has obviously just been mental. It's got a 3 week supply, so yeah, it's extremely high risk to long this up here. So I'd probably actually be more inclined to see if a short is going to present itself rather than look for a long. But yeah, first time it's hit a daily demand. So it's got all the supply above, but it's all weak supply until it breaks demand. And this is a 2-day demand, and it's the first time it's been tested since this candle up, since the 15th of November. So an interesting one to watch, but yeah, if it doesn't bounce here, get out because it's got a long, long way it can fall. Sand. Another bigger picture on this. So obviously, we come out of a 3 week supply. In a giant 3 month demand. 2 month, I don't want to have the 3 month drawn in. Okay, so this is an interesting one to watch. You know, it is in, while it's very deep inside, it is in a macro big demand zone, and in this case has only come out of the 3 week supply. I'm just going to hide that because it's making the chart too busy. That alert can disappear because it's going to be a long time till it gets down there, hopefully. So something like this. So again, like on a lot of these, we're just looking for that high low. Is what's this retest is all about across the market. So here we've got a possible flip of a monthly level. The 5-day demand, which was obviously in there previously that I had alerted. Let's just run down. We've also now got a 3 week demand, but I think I've set it at the point it was a 5-day. Does have weekly supply. So again, just another example of the waves and retracements that, so you've got this down move, bounces, down move, bounces, down move, until it breaks here. It's not bullish. However, it is obviously breaking waves and retracements in this, and we have broken that one. So that's why, you know, this monthly demand is interesting because it's a monthly that it's broken. So we're looking for the possibility of this making a higher low and therefore being able to continue up and to challenge this high, but it is still in a downtrend. locally in a downtrend, bigger uptrend obviously. But yeah, something that's certainly worth watching. The only thing I paused because the only thing I don't love is all this supply above it, and again, but then everything's going to look like that now, so now we just need to judge whether we're going to get any decent bounces that are going to take us right back through supply, if everybody is going to FOMO back into alts, or if everybody's just going to being scared now because obviously prices have sort of probably halved to 2/3 of what they were a few weeks ago. I was just checking how many messages. But yeah, because of this flip of the monthly level here, again, keep an eye on this. I think it's one that's worth keeping. The retracement isn't necessarily as big as I'd like from this size of the up move, but 3-week demand, monthly flip level, definitely worth watching. REEF, this one's much more ropey, and I think I gave this as an example, and this is the one I gave as an example in the group earlier, the ones where I just put, so I put in a lot of these aggressive, at the time, aggressive 3-week and 2-week alerts, but I put them in back here. So this is one that I would have had in around this point in time that never got tested and now is now testing now. So yes, there's still a chance on this, it might make a higher low, but again, this is, you know, in this case, it doesn't even have the support that sand has, for example. We're coming off a 3-month supply. This is one of the ones that I expect to break a low. So if you do get a bounce on this, then I'd potentially be looking for that short entry. And so again, structurally, down, retracement. Preferably you break down and then you get the short entry, if you haven't already got in up here. But given we have the demand, we might get a bounce into here before that happens. So that would be sort of similar to this, that we've come down, we've gone up and tested, and then you get a little bit of a retracement, and then the bigger move comes. So that's what I'd be looking for on something like this. And in an ideal world, it would have a nice supply to do that from, but it might give a weekly. It's got a weekly up the top. But then again, if it's weak, it shouldn't get that high, I don't think. Then something like this, you're just looking at, is that weekly going to confirm at the end of this week, or are we going to get a big bounce for the last few days of the week? I say the last few days, it's only Tuesday. But yeah, that's not a long I want to take. I would be looking for potential entries and shorts on that after it does a bit of a retracement. UTC, good lord, why do these things keep coming back? So annoying. I didn't want to delete that one. So this one, I had a really nice short entry on weekly supply up here. So as you know, like when it hits a zone, I then put in the next one up in case it runs through the initial one I have if I haven't got a chance to watch it. So that's why there's a higher one there. But I gave a really nice rejection off the weekly and then just didn't test. I had an alert for 8-hour, 12-hour supply, much like I explained in the stream yesterday, that if it has an 8-hour, 12-hour, this actually did test it immediately, but I didn't get the rounded retest, which is what I wanted. This is now back into weekly demand, so again, this is definitely an interesting one for looking for a bounce. And on this, just go, I won't do it now, but go and have a look yourself at the grayscale chart and just see what that's doing, the grayscale ETC chart. Grayscale apparently, I think, are the biggest owners of ETC, so it's in their interest to keep it up. And I think it might have hit a monthly supply, but I think it's potentially got a monthly demand, or got maybe even gone through something. It's gone through the monthly supply. So on this, we did already have the 3-month demand, which is really what propelled that massive move up. Really doesn't help having all the old lines on here. So the other thing is on this we are actually in annual demand on ETC. Like, okay, it's a pretty shitty one and we've gone into it, but and yeah, this could also retrace all the way down here if the market wants to do that. But it's, 61 fib, it's come to the 61 fib on the log scale. And it's a deep retracement when you look at the linear chart. trend line's horrible, so I'm going to take that out. But yeah, so it made a 3 month just by a hair, and then it came into it quite deeply, and that's what propelled the up move. And the up move's just gone straight into this weekly supply. But again, this is more just like a bigger range. It's a bit more like how LUNC is looking. Also probably worth, and I'll go back and do this later, it's probably worth looking at what the Bitcoin pair is doing on this. In fact, it's definitely worth looking at what the Bitcoin pair is doing on this. So while it's come down really hard and it's a fairly horrible wick, I've got a 3 week here that was already tested. If it comes all the way down, that's where I'd look, but now is as good a time as any to start looking for longs on this. It is a big weekly zone. But so keep an eye like now, and then also if it comes to this, the retest, the 3 month inside it, because quite commonly if it comes down deep into a zone like that, having had only a very small close above, and then goes straight up, then you might find the actual level itself holds the retest. So keep an eye on the 21.2 mark if this comes down more, and or now. The only thing with ETC is it's not necessarily the fastest mover, it's too high volume, but yeah, like I say, have a look at what Grayscale is doing on that. And then yeah, you've got daily supply twice in here, but not something I'd look to short given the current structure. 2 day supply, 2 day supply. Maybe you could look at shorting the upper one, but no, I'd like to see a little bit more on that first. ORDI. This one I looked at earlier, I kind of liked as well actually. Like it looks ugly, and the concern is the trend line stops under here. The alert was 3 day and then 1 week demand, so we do have a weekly demand. We do also have a weekly supply, which is not ideal. So I would look possibly on this because it's just quite clean to short that weekly supply. I'll come back to that later and set the alert on that. Or dubious, I'm actually not sure, maybe I won't set an alert on that. I'll have to have a think about it. But yeah, this is a nice clean weekly demand. It hasn't been tested before. Definitely something to keep an eye on for a long. Be conscious that the trend line stops again. With any of these, like you're longing into a sort of dumping market, and Bitcoin isn't necessarily at a bottom yet. So this could still be like the first wave of alts hitting alerts, and then we could get a second wave which will drop the first lot deeper or through demands. But something like this is something, because it's come down so hard. It's got an 8 hour up here, and then that weekly above that could at least give you a few percent, even just in a scalp bounce off that. But yeah, keep an eye on the lower time frames and see whether, so this has got a clear 2 hour supply in there, which has already got tested. So yeah, if it's going again, if you get in and start stalling here, get out, or wait till it breaks that 2 hour and then comes back and get into the demand at that point. Alice. I think it's a little bit like sand and reef, but again, I think slightly stronger than reef, but slightly weaker than sand. It's coming out of a 3 month supply, so that's not really a long I want to be taking. Yeah, and then the possibility of weekly supply there. I think I tried the aggressive one before on this as well, like in weekly demand. Just I think based on the fact that it was at a weekly supply rather than some of the others have gone to monthlies. There's obviously a monthly up there. I need to update these charts a bit better. So now we're really down to, are we going to get a second wave on these alts, or are they going to start breaking down demand? So obviously we've broken down some local demand and it's been significantly slower. Sort of 2 things can happen now. We can either get a massive bounce, which will then take our total 3 and others charts back up to the month, or not back up, but up to the monthly zones. If you're of the belief that we're going to have a continuing alt run, or a post-Bitcoin pump alt run, or we're just going to see them start breaking down, and then this is the end, and this is going to make a new low from here because this is still in a downtrend. And that is up to you, but like I said before, the ones you want to be taking are not the ones that are coming out of 3 month supply like this. Doesn't mean it's not going to move, doesn't mean it's a terrible trade, but it just means it's lower probability than something that isn't coming out of 3 month supply. So yeah, like I say, like with ORDI, it doesn't have, it's at all-time high, it doesn't have supply. So while it's moved up a lot, a crazy amount, and it seems crazy to long up here, the supply it has is limited to those people that bought it near the top over the last few months, whereas the supply on something like Alice is people who've been holding on to this for a decade and are desperate to get out. I'm exaggerating, not a decade, but a year or two. QNT. This was also kind of a nice one, actually. God, I remember that. I was trying to get the trend line break and it was just painful and failed. So what have we got here? QNT. This is a very old alert, I think. So again, it's come out of 3 months supply. It's just tight. Like I had to delete some of the zones just because I couldn't, can't see what I'm doing. So it has come out of a 3 month supply, but has come back into a monthly demand. I think the alert wasn't because it probably didn't. Yes, I've got 2 day, 2 week demand, but that 2 day, 2 week is now monthly. Plus we've got the swing fail of the previous monthly here. So this is kind of a more interesting long. The risk is coming from 3 month supply. But the bigger picture is very much just sideways. But yeah, I wouldn't be averse to anybody saying they're longing this. So it's something for sure to keep an eye on. And has it come down quite heavily? 2 week, weekly. So again, just be conscious that this actually has rejected off the weekly supply. Okay, so it's still in this range, and has taken a reasonable amount of stops over that trend line that I was hoping to happen a year ago. It's very much just a sideways range for me on this. It's holding that last low. If this is just a deviation below the low, it doesn't have to go back and test down here, or that would be a nice long if it did. Now with the monthly demand and it being a small monthly demand, therefore like a reasonable risk to reward, that is something you could try. Concerns are that, yeah, it hasn't tested this weekly zone down here, obviously hasn't tested the weekly one down there, but from a local perspective, this is potentially a decent long. Pros and cons, pros and cons. Multi is another one on the short side. This is one of those really annoying ones where I've had this alert set here for, again, probably God knows how long, and 2 day demand hasn't quite got there, and then it's done that. So it would have been lovely. But anyway, it's done that right into 6 month supply. So this is definitely a short bias for me. And then I just throw this 2 months in there just in case it confirms. Just throw another couple of levels in just to be aware of. Yeah, that crazy move. But the crazy move is still ending at resistance. And it swing failed that level. Swing failed the weekly. So it could potentially make a weekly demand, in which case then it may be worth looking for a long if it come all the way back down here. But I know nothing about this coin. I don't know if there's some reason. Assuming there's no catalyst for this, and maybe do a quick Twitter check to check there's no sort of reason this has happened, and happened obviously at the time that Bitcoin's falling. But yeah, certainly look for confirmed short entries on that if they present themselves, because it is just, I think it's first tap on 6 month supply as well. I know I had a tap there, but was that after it confirmed is the question. I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell now. So it did have the immediate tap and then didn't make a lower low, so it has gone higher in the supply, which is expected. Yeah, that makes it slightly less exciting as a short, but it's still potentially a good short just because of the fact it pumped in a few hours. And as you saw with something like ETC, for example, when you get those, quite often they're fairly decent for a significant retrace, but it just might need a bit of time. So multi and SC are the two on the short side that might need a little bit of time just to work out what they're doing. But wait for some structure to present because it hasn't as yet. It's just very much sideways. This reminds me of POGI actually, which was already painful. Another painful experience. It has rejected an hourly supply there, but again hasn't made the low yet. Could just be building longs to take out first, and to be a little bit careful on funding as well. 15 minutes to go. GNS was a nice one. I kept on my layout from earlier. So this is a nice, so yeah, it's good to see some of these coming back into the monthly level. So again, this is one of the ones that I would say I would like, because we've got the big monthly demand here. It's also got a 2 month that it wicked into, or actually in fact it's spring failed the whole thing previously, but it's come back and it's retesting. So it's swing failed the zone, but then it's come back and it's retested it. And it's made a new monthly demand. Plus, it hasn't gone to a particularly significant supply yet. So it's gone into the 3 week. 2 weeks there. This actually hasn't quite tapped the level, although it has started to bounce. So I'm going to reset the alert for down here in case we get a bit more of a drop. So 2 week inside 1 month demand. But this is something anyone like holders anyway that can keep an eye on because of that monthly. It's got a weekly supply, so if you're scalping or if you're lower time frame trader, just be aware that this is likely to be an obstacle if it gets back up there. Be disclaimer, if it gets back up there. It started to bounce like relatively well on the lower time frames, so I'm not going to draw in all the supply and demand, but yeah, so that's your first sort of risk area, and we're already starting to move here, but just note it hasn't quite hit the level. Got a 4 hour supply here, but just watch for structure to develop in here that might allow you a better risk to reward on a long from here, but that's a decent one. Bake. Okay, so Bake, yeah, I was very short biased because we're on annual supply. So the wick up into the annual, and then it was rejected a monthly just beneath that after the bounce. 3 weeks a long way away. Hold on, I'm just running through the zones a bit too quickly. So there's a 3 month indirect level there. There's another one here. So this could certainly pick up bounces, but with the projection of the annual supply, it's not something I'll long. The 2 week down there is reasonable, so that would be at least a decent retracement of that move, even if the bias is still down being off the annual supply. So actually I prefer this entry, and also we come off the weekly supply there. So this is another one that hasn't quite hit the level yet, so if the market timing's right, it's something you can keep an eye on because it hasn't come down yet. So if it gets a bit lower and starts to consolidate, then you can potentially look for another move up on that. But just be conscious of annual supply. Joe. There's this weekly demand. Obviously set ages ago as well. Yeah, so I don't love the swing fail on this at the highs, because that tends to make me think it's going to take out some lows. So again, this is possibly not something I would be overexcited about looking at, but something to keep an eye on, as always. I'm going to reset the alert on this down on the 3 week, but it's not something I'm going to look at for now. In its favour though, this, you know, like while it's swing failed, it has made just a high there, and it also didn't come off anywhere too significant up here, I don't think. So we've got a monthly up at the 1.21, got a 3 week in there, then we've got this 2 week that I've just added, which is offsets, and make that indirect. It didn't quite reach any of those levels, but you know, I mean, it's rejecting this, so it's rejecting that for the lower, for the down move. And again, like a lot of the alts, it's a question of what patterns we're going to get now. Like, are we now looking at bear flags that are going to go pew? And when you see that, it kind of makes me more inclined in that direction. But significantly more time, there's no reason you're not going to get scalps like this, even if it does end up going like that. So let's see. But we only trade zones as we see them, so if it hits the weekly demand and you see a reaction, there's no reason you can't long this at least back up to here. Or if you look on here, or whatever, there's the 3 day, 2 day, or whatever inside here. 2 day, even just to get it from there back up to the 2 day. Not dissimilar to that. Let's come back up into the 2 day, dropped again before the bigger drops. And then the bigger drops take you back down to the start of the impulse, so it's possible we will ultimately come all the way back down here, hence why I set the alert. And in this case, because of the multiple swing failures of this high, it's possible we'll take out these lows at the other end of the range. But yeah, it's got a little bit lower to go on that, so you can keep an eye on it. LUNC. Haven't looked at this one for a while either. And these hit while I was out at the gym earlier, so oops. Yeah, so this has come off a 6-month supply, so it's again not something I particularly want to long. It's a ranging supply, but it didn't close. I think I was looking at it to see if it would close. Month, 3 months, 2 months. Oh, there was a 2-month supply in there. So the wick did go all the way through the 2-month supply and up into the weekly at the top. So again, like we're coming down, and I've commented on some other videos on this, that we've got this monthly flip level. The alert was for a 1 week demand, so it hasn't quite come down that far yet. But again, are we going to get this bounce on the immediate demand, or are we going to go to the lowest ones before we get the bounce? Remains to be seen. And basically dependent on what Bitcoin's going to do. This does have a weekly supply in there at that 6 monthly level as well. So this is one I'm probably more inclined to look for a short. So what I want to see on something like this is that, you know, potentially getting the bounce soon in here, but that weak bounce, lower volatility, right? You've got this extreme volatility and then larger volatility coming down, much the same as here. But then I want to see it move slowly back up to this weekly, and then potentially look for the bigger short, which may either come down to here or to break the low. But you've got the month flip level that it's just come off here, and then weekly just inside that, so keep an eye on it if you want to long it for a scalp. CKB. I've got 7 minutes left, so how many have I got left? Only 3. Let's try and be super quick. It's rejected annual up here and a lower high here. This is another one I'd probably be less inclined to look for a bigger picture long, but it might just make, again, this could just make this triangle. So I guess we're going to look on a lot of these alts, whether they're just going to start forming triangles or whether they're just going to continue to break down like they have done for the past couple of years. But yeah, CKB off annual supply there. It's not ideal. tried to, well, it has flipped a 3-month demand, but it's come really deeply into it. It's not even worth having that drawn. Yeah, I feel like I need to look at this chart a little bit more. I've got levels in here that shouldn't be here anymore. Yeah, that's not a long I particularly want to take. Uni. Another messy one and a very old entry. Just trying to speed it up now. Uni's obviously one that doesn't work very well for me. Oops. So it did get a close over the 3-month level there, but as it come down deeper inside. I like the fact at least it's in a bigger 3-month demand here, but then I don't like the fact it's got this monthly untested down here at the base, 3-week demand and 1 month. So I'd be a lot more interested in that if it comes down lower. Because I always prefer levels to actually be retested. But it's not horrendous. Similar structure to everything else, really, just looking for, you know, if we're going to get the bounce or if it's going to just break back down again. But from a range perspective, yeah, I prefer lower than this. Probably down on that monthly. This doesn't treat me that well, it seems. FITFI. So this took a wick through, well, that would have been a weekly zone there. It's come back through a weekly zone. This is a bit messy for me, I think. The fact it's wicked and bounced just above is not great. But yeah, keep an eye on this. I don't mind it. If the market is going to continue, I mean, what all of these boil down to is if the market's going to continue. If the market's going to continue, then great. If it's not, then it's all going to die. So, but this is in the grand scheme of things, this isn't a bad entry on FITFI. I'll leave XAI till later, and I've got to go because I've got 3 minutes to get to dinner. So I hope that is of some help to you. At least give you some ideas of what to watch, what to look at, and some of the things I'm thinking, even though I'm being very, very quick in the analysis. Again, I'll try and do another better stream a bit more slowly and look at alts. I want to probably run some streams over the next week or the rest of the week where I just generally go over alts, and then people can watch or not watch at their leisure because I need to do a whole load of updates anyway, and adding in new zones and checking what structures are looking like. But yeah, so keep an eye on some of those and let's see what kind of bounces we get. Few on the layout that the premium guys have access to, and I will have a look later, and the ones I think are more promising I'll probably put on the layout. Keep on the layout. SC and multi on the short side and everything else basically on the long side. Oh, I think I didn't check, did I not check MAV? So MAV was an alert I think from a few days ago, or maybe just before the weekend. I've deleted the alert, that's why it's gone off the list. But yeah, this is holding quite well again despite the dump. So this is something it's fighting a little bit with the old all-time high level, this orange level. But if it can get back over there and flip that, then this is potentially still has the opportunity to move in the higher time frame. Anyway, that really is it. I have to go. I'm going to be late now. Ciao.